Hi and welcome. Tonight we have my favourite guest in the world, my big brother, Greg Bryers. And Greg is a healer as well. He is an amazing person. And he is Greg Bryers, Alchemy of the Body, based in Tottenham, and he has clients all around the world and travels Europe regularly across all of the different countries, doing amazing workshops and seminars. And I have had the pleasure to meet some of his clients who have said to me that when Greg is in the room, it's like there is just an energy of overwhelming heavenly love. And I can't agree more. I have a background with Greg. We were young and we had a very interesting, our lives have taught us so much. And in that learning, we were separated throughout our lives for a lot of it. And in recent years, a couple of years ago, Greg, we got back together and found each other. And it's really just so beautiful and incredible to me that you can have completely different lives and worlds and journeys, and then meet and find that we've actually been on the same path. And I'm so proud to have Greg here tonight. He's had 4 near-death experiences in his life, and he's had multiple OBEs, and he was my hero when I was a kid. So Greg Bryers, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, it was a bit of a little sister chitty chat there, but I'm already
Yeah.
emotional. Greg, you have had the most incredible experiences in your life, and tonight is just a little bit of that. And I would love for you to share with the world your stories of your near death experiences.
Whoa. It's, you know, I've been preparing for this for ever. And it's still, you get so hesitant to share. Um, I've had people who are really close to me tell me I was just imagining, this is just imagination shit. And then they listen to somebody else who they don't even know telling the same story. And they go, oh, wow, that sounds just like you. And suddenly you
Absolutely.
realize that you, you actually had no value until somebody else confirms the same shit. And so I actually learned to shut up and not talk about it much, even as a teenager. Um, we grew up in the Mormon church and where we're taught, your ancestors can come back and help you and rescue you when you really need help. And for me, this is, I actually have a reality of this. And but when I told the minister in the local congregation this, he just went, "Oh, yeah, it's okay, Greg."
Patted
And,
you on the head and
and
sent you home to sort of like, oh, here we go. Someone wants to be special.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah,
remember being very young, and you were my like big hero, and we used to spend so much time talking and daydreaming, and we talked about adventures we were having, and really you gave me a great freedom in my mind to believe that I can rise above the world, and it's just a matter of time for my arms and muscles grew big enough that I'd be able to
yeah,
do that,
yep,
and so
absolutely.
that's always held me well in my life. But I remember you had a car accident when we were young, and you shared with me an incredible experience of that, and I was your greatest believer.
Thank you. Yeah, and even that, it's you when you. How do you start the stuff without getting tearful? I mean, I watched an interview the other day of a man talking, and he was so clear and so succinct, and
Oh, was that
you
Jeff
could feel
Olson?
his, yeah, yeah, you
Yes,
know,
yes,
but,
yes.
you could see that there were tears just below the surface, but I haven't learned to keep them there yet, um, and
But you know
even
what,
as a
Greg?
little,
You know what, Greg? In this space here, this is for people who are going to be watching this, and and learning so much from you, and people that have felt alone all their lives, that have had people tell them that they're just silly, or they're dreaming, or they're just attention seeking. And so this is for those people. So please cry away, because I know that I will. I actually went and got the tissues before, because I already started crying before he even started. So just, feel free to just be who you are here. We can always blot out the screen if you do the ugly cry.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'll turn
you're
the
so
microphone off too.
yes. So the one
Yeah.
I'm talking about was when you were driving our grandmother's Morris Minor, and
No, it was actually a friend's car.
what was a
And
friend's
I was,
car?
I was actually sent, we were at a social, and people were supposed to bring supper for plate for supper. That was the interest, but nobody bought food. So they gave me $20 and said, go get some chips from the local fish and chip shop. And I'd made the order, and I was on my way to get there, and I never arrived. And what had happened was the guy was stoned off his face, and he had caused 2 hit-and-run accidents, and he hit the side of the car that I was driving and basically totaled it, bent it up quite badly. And they found me on the footpath unconscious, bleeding quite profusely from the back of my head. And the next day or a few days later, when the police come and interviewed me about it, they said, so we're confused. How did you get out of the car? Because the fire brigade had to use big steel bars to open the doors, and there wasn't a window broken that was big enough for me to climb out. And at that moment I had already learned to shut the fuck up. And am I allowed to say that? Or
Of
maybe
course.
not. Anyway, um, I'd really, and I just said, oh, I don't know. And but the truth of the matter is that a dear friend that walked with me all my life opened the door and said, Gregory, get out of the car. This is the same person that when I hopped in the car said, Gregory, put your seatbelt on, so clearly. And in 1975, seatbelts were just an ornament that we sort of put up with the rattle on the side of the car. And so without argument, I'd learned to totally obey this voice. And I can remember getting out of the car, falling onto the footpath and saying, why? You know, I can describe the thread of his trousers, the tweed. I can tell you the smell of his tobacco. I can tell you the softness of his beard. He had the bluest eyes.
He carried you,
And
didn't he?
when I described him to our father, he said, oh, no, it's impossible. He died when you were 2. So what? You know? This is where I learned that people teach stuff that they don't believe. I can't do that. I can't even sell stuff I don't like. So, I'm not a salesman. And Papa's worked with me all my life. When I was a little boy in the King Country, I was kind of a wild child. I was kind of feral. I wasn't allowed to go to kindergarten because, not Greg. I'd watch my sisters go, but I wasn't allowed to go. And so I roamed the farmland around the old village. And I was never by myself. I was never alone. And I can remember holding his hand. And he would tell me about plants, and he would tell me about, oh, you can swim in this pool, but don't go in that one because that one's got poison in it. And I was always, never had fear. And yeah, it still was with me. So yeah, that was probably the first time that these are out of body, these are experiences where I've known all my life that there's more to this than just being born and winking out at the end of it.
Mm.
Um, there's always been that knowing, but yeah, it's been quite a long journey, and but I guess really what you're wanting to talk about is where I've actually left my body, and clearly remember. And I guess the first one would have been when I was 17 and I was working in the tunnels with the Italians.
So these were the
And
tunnels in Waiouru, and that was
yeah,
in the middle of the North Island of New Zealand, and it was
yep,
snow country, and yeah.
yep, mountains, volcanoes. Yeah. And I was visiting my Auntie Dali, and her husband, Albie. And I had what turned out to be some sort of breathing attack. And the doctors put it down to asthma, but I left my body and was really, really, really cool. It was like I stopped struggling and was just this, enveloped in this amazing sense of peace.
So what actually
And
happened when the attack first started? So, where were you
I
when it?
was sitting in the lounge talking to my uncle.
Okay, so you were in the
And
lounge at the barracks of where you stayed.
no, in their house. I'd gone to
Oh,
Waiouru to visit them.
sorry, at our relative's house.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And sorry, I tend to skip details because to me they're not important anymore.
So
And and so but we were just talking. I just suddenly couldn't breathe, and struggled, and then just fell on the floor. And it was like I'm just, as my body's falling to the floor, I'm being pulled up to be on the ceiling, and I'm looking down on my body going, oh, this is so cool. There's no more struggle. There's no more pain. And just enveloped with this beautiful sense of peace. And then I saw my uncle trying to revive me, and I'm screaming at him, don't touch me. Leave me alone. I'm happy. And then Auntie Dali came in and she screamed. And next time I'm back in my body and I'm so pissed off. Yeah, it was interesting. But it was such a sense of peace. And there was, again, after the car accident, so chronological order, these things happen, I guess. Again, it was like, I just know, and I just knew. And I had just a longing for that peace. Um, it's really interesting that after that, though, I had a knowing that I didn't realize I had, but people could ask me a question about something spiritual or something, and my mouth would just start talking. And I didn't even know I knew this shit, and it would just come out.
yeah. So the portal
I
had
know, I
opened
mean,
and the communication work was beginning.
oh, absolute, yeah. I mean, I had, I was in the Mormon church and blah, blah, blah. And I would be talking to people and I'd say things to them that, they said, well, how do you know that? Where, I didn't tell anybody about that. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And I decided to shut up a little bit. Um, but I guess really, again, um, there was this, that was easy to get over. But as I got older, life got harder. I wasn't so much angry. I was just frustrated with myself and frustrated with knowing stuff and seeing people and the lies and the dishonesty and even in the church, you know. And I just wanted out of there, you know. I love my children deeply, but at some level, I was creating death in my body. And
So
I
you
was at
made a suicide
university, and
pact with yourself inside.
yeah, well, you
Close.
know, as Louise Hay put it in her book, um, people who have strokes have decided that you can't change things. It's easier to die than to choose change.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're married in the Mormon church, it's forever, you know, so you're stuck. It's like, well, I might as well just die. Can't, you know. Which is crazy considering our father had just had his third divorce. And or second or whatever, I can't remember. Um, but you know, it's like there's this deep unhappiness. And I was at university and I just completed all my papers to do my masters, complete my masters, and all I had to do was write my thesis. And I was so excited. I was absolutely on a high. And I'm running up some stairs to chase a friend of mine who was just going past me. And suddenly there's this roaring in my ears. It's like I was standing beside a furnace, and everything had this yellow tinge around me. And I just felt really, really disassociated. And I stopped and I looked around and realized I'd dropped my bag. It was back down the hallway, and how the hell did I do that? And so I went back to pick up my bag, and that, you know, I'm quite left-handed really, and I went down to pick it up, and my arm's just swinging like a pendulum, and I'm thinking, what? And so I grabbed my left arm with my right hand. Now my right hand could feel my left arm, but I couldn't feel my hand touching my arm, and and I stood up, and there was a guy just down the hall from me. I called out to him to give me help, and he came up, and he looked at me, idiot, and walked away.
Also, he thought you were drunk because you couldn't speak
Yeah,
properly.
he just sort of stoned or something. Typical
Oh,
old fart at
oh,
university, you
he
know.
was right. Yeah.
No, I was. He thought I was stoned,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
I
Okay.
was just a typical old shit. So, because I was one of the mature students there, and so I picked my bag up with my right hand, and I get to where my desk is. We had a graduate's room as an office where we could do study and we could talk to people and talk to each other and write our thesis. And I couldn't remember how to open the door. And thought, oh, this is weird. So I'm leaning against the door, and I've got my right hand, I'm rubbing my face, and I can't feel my left side. And there's something fat inside my mouth that I can't get rid of. I'm trying to spit this thing out. And I'm doing this, and a friend of mine comes out and goes, Jesus, Greg, you look fucking awful. I went, he says, are you all right? And fell on him. And so he quickly screamed, and we're outside. We're also just across the hall from the Dean of Science's office. So they come out and they call emergency. But you know, it was interesting watching my friends try to keep me awake and keep me conscious.
Yeah.
One of my friends, the guy that I fell on, he's sitting here looking at me. He says, "You're a lucky bastard." And someone says, "What?" He goes, "Bro, last time I got legless and speechless like this, I spent a lot of money. He's just done it for free." And of course, I'm laughing like crazy with this. I've got tears coming down my face, making all these weird sounds because I can't talk. And the doctor comes from the university. The doctor comes and he says it's all right. He's just hyperventilated. We'll get him down to the ambulance. He did done none of the checks that he'd just taught us the week before to do when the student is under stress. And so they got me to walk. So they got me up and I was dragging my left foot. My left arm was hanging like just the pendulum. And I walked to the ambulance down the lift and then outside to the lift. And they said, you're a big boy. You're going to have to get in there by yourself. Because I was 145 kilos, by the way.
Oh, wow. What's that in pounds?
Yeah, about 320, I think. Might be a bit more. So I wasn't fat, but I was kind of big. And
well, you're super tall.
Well, I was 6'2", 6'3" at the time, I think. But yeah, but big shoulders, big fat head. And I get into the ambulance, they take me down to the medical center rather than to a hospital. They took me to the medical center at the university. And then they said, well, we have to reverse the order now. You have to walk in there. So I get out very carefully. And now my left leg is really starting to drag. My face has dropped more. And I can't feel from my shoulder down. There's just this heavy thing hanging by my neck. And I get inside the door, my body just goes, fuck it. And I just fell like somebody just cut a tree down. There's a
oh, wow.
But instead of anybody trying to catch me, they just cleared the way and let me hit the ground. Then they picked me back up. They got me back into the medical room eventually. And a nurse comes and goes, oh, shit. She races that, drags this doctor's sorry ass back into the room, points at my face, and he goes, okay, ambulance, you take him to hospital now. And he rang the emergency to say I was coming in. Now, I don't remember the trip. I can remember sitting in the hospital gurney, looking at this lady and her little boy, thinking, wow, nice person. Wonder why they have to share my room with me. And the doctors kept coming and saying, have you seen the wife yet? No. What's her name? I don't know. Well, what's your name? I don't know. And they could call me Mr. Bryers. Mr. Bryers, what's your name? And I just had no idea. That took me maybe 6 months, maybe a year before somebody could say, hey, Greg, what's your name? And I go, I think it's Greg. Before that, I'd have to give them my ID. Now, at some point during that time, I left my body. I can't remember when, but the leaving the body, I totally remember. It's actually really easy because you just feel yourself sigh. And then you are free. There's no more pain. It doesn't hurt to breathe. There's no headache. There's no pain inside your head. And you just, again, enveloped with this incredible sense of joy and peace and welcome. Well, sort of welcome, it's like there's no judgment. And I can tell you now, there's no fat man sitting up there with a harp saying, you have been a naughty boy, Greg. I saw you pinch some bottles, I saw you steal some money. I saw you. There's none of that bullshit. And I'm in this space and there's all these colors and they're moving. And as they slowly like coalesce, I guess is a word, they come into focus. And I realize that the people that I know, and it's like, hi, I'm here. And I'm trying to get their attention. And they keep looking at me and then talking about something. And then, but I'm here. This is so cool. And Some of them turned to me and said, "You're not supposed to be here. You have to go back." I said, "No, no way. I'm not going back.
Not this time.
This is this not that not end of story. I'm not going back." And they said, "No, you have to go back, and you have to go back now." It wouldn't have been so bad if I'd been back in my body without the memory of that. But to come back into a body full of pain and to remember that peace and that joy made me quite angry for a while, quite resentful. I was not a happy boy. And now, that was my first stroke. 2 strokes later, I'm still, I've had 2 more out of body near-death experiences where I've left my body and had my sorry ass sent back to this unkind environment.
So your self-suicidal pact is become even stronger the more you experience it.
Oh,
Like, I'm out of
absolute.
here.
Yeah, just like, whoa, the second chance, third chance. And after the third time of leaving my body and just knowing, and watching people actually, at that time there was a lot of unkindness. I had a brother-in-law who told my wife, my kid's mum, he's faking it. He hasn't had strokes. And the crazy thing was, and it was really heartbreaking for me, was my wife believed him and treated me that way, as though, resented this shit.
So you had to try and qualify the fact that
Yeah.
you were in this
And
state.
even when we met a friend who had a stroke like me, but because it was her friend, and we're talking, and she says, "Oh my God, before I thought you were just faking it, pretending, but when you're both talking, I see you have the same problems. So maybe it is real." And it was like, we've been married for 16 years, and you never believed. What is that? So, for me, I knew that basically I was trying to paddle a sinking ship. But
It's
still,
something very interesting about our background in I don't know whether it's New Zealand or it's just life, but having to qualify your own pain or trauma to other people is I have it. There's nothing in me that would make me do this to people. Yet it just seems like
Yep,
it's,
absolute.
yeah.
I've learned to not show pain. I've got 9 hours, 12 hours of tattoos on my body, and I slept through most of it.
After my near-death experience, I got told to get up and stop feeling sorry for myself and go to work. And,
Yeah.
but I went to the doctors, and he
Yeah.
took one look at me and rang the woman who was my son's grandmother on the other side. But he ripped into her and he said, "You are the don of a nursing home and have been for 40 years. How dare you?" Like, what had happened was my tonsils were so thin that they'd burst and I had all the toxins through my body. And he was just like, "I cannot believe you're alive." And he screamed at her, "You get down here now and you pick her up." And he said, "If she doesn't get any better in the next 4 hours, she's in hospital." And like, it was, and it's only been since then, years later, that I discovered that I'd actually had a near-death experience. And I described it to a partner a few years later. And, I was able to describe it in quite detail because he was a film director. And it wasn't until the movie Contact came out and we actually went to see it together, and we were sitting in the theater and he was like, "Oh my God, that's what you were describing." He's mouthing the words to me, "Oh my God, that's what you were describing in your experience." And it's been amazing to see so many other people that have it. But this whole thing of having to qualify our own trauma it's been something that's continued, and I don't know if it's just our family but it's a whole
No,
thing
it's
all
the
of our
world. It's
lives.
worldwide. It's this everybody. This is Shirley MacLaine describes it really succinctly in her book, The Camino,
Yeah,
and where science has replaced religion, um, and so spirituality is on the way out. And if you can't measure it and think it, then there's nothing else. There is no awareness. There is no consciousness. There is no humanity, and it's it's all of that.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but
And
you know,
so what you've said inside all of that time is a lifetime of pain, because you were a little boy who loved your mama, who was gone from your life very early, and so you were quite alone inside all of those years, and then to be living this with these traumas, with what we know now and the work we do, we know that you've had, PTSD from the age of 4, right? And you've continued it through, and it's just been compounded all of that time. And as healers, we totally understand. If someone like you arrived as a client, you would totally understand what that is.
absolute.
And
Yeah,
yet you were in this world where it was so foreign to other people that, being told that you're an attention seeker just makes you want to shoot yourself, right? Or them, one or the other.
yeah.
But
Or you're lazy, or your imagination, and blah blah blah.
yeah,
Yeah, and when your partner tells you, you just imagine it. That makes it even harder.
yeah,
So, but it's like
I think you had a
that
broken heart,
space.
my brother.
Yep, many times. But again, the broken heart is only a choice, and this is what I learned too. And
Yes, this is what our life
when
has
you're in,
taught us, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, when you're in that space, well, the guy Olson describes it as
Jeff
like he
Wilson.
just talked about two places, but he said the place where the colors are so vibrant and you feel so alive that you can taste the colors, you can smell the colors, you get a download and you get an understanding, and after that it doesn't matter. And I've really learned. I mean, still I get angry when people lie to me. I still get hurt when people lie to me, and I guess that's why when I'm working with body people, I have to touch the body, because when I touch the body, they can't lie to me.
No,
But it's like I asked, what is all this for? Why do I have to keep coming back here? And the last stroke I had, I got really told quite clearly that I have a job to do. And I got really pissed with that. And it wasn't until I acknowledged that, okay, so I chose this life. I chose to do the things that I've done so I could learn something, so I could teach something. Okay, right. So I accepted that, acknowledged it, and I started to work as a healer again. Or I learned massage. I became one of the best massage therapists in New Zealand. And, that's my words. I don't care what anybody says. But when you got people traveling from Northern down to Dannevirke
mm,
to see me for a massage and then driving home again, there's got to be a reason. When you have people who treated in Wellington drive 3 hours to come and see you and then have a massage and a coffee and then drive home again, there's something beyond. And I really worked at opening myself up and creating a space where people could feel what it was I felt on the other side. And so people would come into my room, and I thought, yes, that's my room. I've created the space. Until a really dear friend of mine, actually a distant cousin of ours, Koro Mullins, and he married another cousin of ours, Mavis Poway from Denver. And I can always remember, ever since I've known them, it's Uncle Joe, Auntie Joe, and we were always welcome at the home in Dandenberg. Um,
I
but
don't know
Koro
a lot
was
of our relatives.
no,
I've been open
yeah,
for so long.
Koro he was really cool. He would come to see me whenever he was in the area for a massage, and I highly respected this man. And when I was talking to him, I said, oh, I don't know if it's worth keeping up doing this stuff. I don't know if I'm actually making a difference. He says, Greg, you're no longer a massage therapist. You've gone way beyond even therapist. You're into a different realm. Why do you think people come to see you? It's not because you can know the muscles and you can treat the muscles. It's because you actually heal them. And I said, well, I don't believe I do. I Yes, I touch them and I create the space, but it's a space that allows their body to heal itself and their mind to let go of the memory and the drama. And he looked at me and says, see, you've gone way beyond. And I think it was the first time I've ever been called a tuhunga. and I really ran away from that. And anyway, I got a bit distracted from my task. And a little bee stung me under the foot. Was making my beeswax massage cream for doing massages, and a swarm had gone through, and one of them was in the kitchen on the floor, and I stood on him, and he stung me under the left foot, under that number toe, and I didn't feel it there, but it felt like somebody jabbed me in the ass with a needle.
Oh, wow.
And I spun around, what's that? And then I felt the wings of the bee under my foot. I said, if I stood on something, a bee or something, and Deb says, yeah, you got a bee. And she tried to get it off and couldn't. And then she, you know how you get a stick and you scrape? Well, they couldn't scrape it. So she actually had to get it and squeeze it to pull it out. Doing that to squeeze the poison into the body, then this thing had gone into the nerve under my foot. And I started to get agitated and couldn't settle, or couldn't get comfortable, couldn't think of what to do. I just kept going around in circles in the kitchen. And Deb and her helper just said, go sit in the lounge and I'll go and get some cream to help with this bee sting. So I sat in the lounge and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I can't move. And I'm now paralyzed from my neck down. And then I'm paralyzed from here down. I can blink. I can still breathe, but I can't move. My body is totally rigid. My jaw is clenched shut. I've got the most intense, I call it exquisite pain in my head and neck. And the assistant came in to put these homeopathic drops in my mouth. She's opening your mouth and I'm just looking at her. And she says, stop playing. You just open your mouth. And she goes to open my lip and it's rigid. She can't open. And my body is just locked solid. And so they call the ambulance. Of course, the ambulance then calls the fire brigade because they need help to get me out of the house.
What? Because you were
Yeah.
because
I
you
was
were
totally
like
rigid. I couldn't.
frozen. Yeah, yeah.
I was in a standing position.
Yeah.
And so they got me out and into the ambulance. And my last memory was seeing my dog Honey really worried and wanted to get in the ambulance with me.
Oh,
And all I could do was blink at her.
oh.
Have you ever tried to blink loudly to get somebody's attention? It
I've
doesn't happen.
done that a few times.
Yeah. And then I don't remember the trip to the hospital. I was not present for the next day either. I always tell people that at some point the universe decided that somebody needed to have a face-to-face talk with Greg and to just put a few things straight. So
Because you'd been asking the question, hadn't you? Like, why me? What the heck?
yeah, what is this all about? What's the point?
I give
And
up.
this time I'm going to say I don't remember the conversation.
Okay.
But I know that when I became conscious of my body, conscious of the space around me,
Yeah.
and aware of people. I couldn't move. They could pick my arm up and it would just stay there for hours. Um, but I had this incredible peace and this incredible knowing. And there was just, I mean, the nurses, they hear all these alarms going off all the time. And the nurses would come in, Mr. Bryers, can you breathe? Oh, yeah, okay, I can breathe. I forget. But it's just so
So,
unimportant.
so you were forgetting to breathe?
It
Like
just
like
wasn't important.
your automatic body functions were happening that way, that you're
Everything stopped.
yeah.
There was no cognitive, okay, I have to breathe. I'd just be sitting there watching people and then the alarms would start going, Mr. Bryers, you need to breathe. And but I could look at people and I could see everything about them, about their, I could see where they function from, their fear. And that was really sad because some of these people profess to believe in stuff and then you look at them and think, no, you don't. You know, when somebody look at me and go, I love you. And all I could think was, no, you don't. It's like, what is this? But it was like, it was the truth. And they don't love me. And it was okay. I was totally peaceful with it. And my whole values around life were so different, so changed. I know I can't get jealous. I mean, I get upset sometimes when people die, but only the early time was because I was so pissed that they died and I couldn't. Or I couldn't stop them from dying. They're allowed to die, what the fuck,
Yeah.
But I don't walk around morbid and sad because they've died, because for me, they're still there. They're still with us. If I want to talk to Pop now, I just have to stop, close my eyes and have a chat.
So this was the next level of cognition that opened up.
Yeah. Wayne Dyer talks about it in some of his books. And it's like, really, I really, I see death so differently now. I still have fears in my life, fears of being rejected and not liked.
Oh.
But even that's now disappearing too. But I don't have fear of being hurt. I don't have fear of dying. Flying into Wellington Airport in the middle of a big storm is like, whoa, this is a roller coaster. Hands up, everybody, And people are throwing up in the back, and it's like, I turned to my partner. I says, well, Air New Zealand's got the best record. We're safe. I'm on the plane. I'm not allowed to digest this, so we're going to land. And she says, you're not helping things.
Yeah.
But it's true.
That's funny. I have the live every day as if it's your last, because it just well could be. And the thing that holds people out from dying is their having not cleaned up their backyard, so it's regrets. And so I live every day without regrets. I get to the end of the day and I go to sleep and go, yep, no, all good, done good today and good to go. So if it's on, happy to go. And it's such a great way to move through life, isn't it? Through every day. It's such a freeing thing to have learned when we get it in its right perspective.
Yeah. And when you learn that death is not something to fear, that's actually more like waking up.
Absolutely.
And as the guy also said, this is the fuzzy world, this is the dream world. In my classes, I tell people, life is really like a theme park. This lifetime, I've come to play in the roller coaster, ups and downs. Next time I'm coming back for the pool.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to playing the water world. Fuck this stuff. This is hard work. I want to play next time. And it's like, but we do. We when you can really understand and see that you are an infinite being, that you've always existed, that you always will exist, even if it's just as an awareness, as some people say. That awareness is growing. It's growing in power and strength and knowledge and understanding, because it comes here to put things into a different perspective. The white taha that we have a story about the creation and how we came to be,
Is this in New
and
Zealand?
it's yeah,
So this
yeah.
is
So
Maori
these are the
history.
people. These are the people before the Maoris. They're all the same people, but different waves. The Maoris will tell you differently, but it's
So
only
these are the
modern.
Morioris.
No, this is before the Moriori even.
Okay.
So there was the Waitaha, then the Moriori, and then there was the Maoris.
Right, right.
So the Waitaha people were amazing. They were peaceful gardeners. They cultivated and they looked after the land. By the time the Maoris came, they were more like the Americans are, rape and pillage and do everything they can and eat what they can, and then, oh fuck, we've run out. Now what? You know, I don't care what anybody says. When a Maori tells me he's the kaidiaki of the land, I think, yeah, show me, bro. More animals have gone extinct since you've been on the land than before. So anyway, blah blah. But they have this story, and it goes that we all lived together in the light, and we dwelt there in joy and peace. And then one day we decided to go to the darkness to experience darkness. And we were in the darkness and we grieved for the light. And we learned and we grieved. And then we went back to the light where we were joyful and celebrated. And one like us came to us and said, I dreamed a dream, and this was something new. He says, but if you lend me of your essence, I will create the dream so that we can all dream it together. And the universe sprang into existence.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so beautiful. Where is that from?
it's from the Songs of the Waitaha. It's
Songs of the
very abridged, but it's a beautiful book.
So we can put a link
And
to that in this, can't we?
yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful book. It's by Gary Beresford.
Beresford?
The Waitaha are not happy with him because he was supposed to give them the rights to the book and he kept it for himself. But too bad. There's the
Oh, how
stories
dare
that he's
he?
recorded.
How dare he be a tool?
Yeah, blah blah, white boy, blah blah blah. But and but all of the indigenous cultures, when you really listen to their stories, all had the same story.
Absolutely.
We all created this universe for us to experience things. And each lifetime, when you think in the terms of being an infinite being, if you lived 100 years, it's not even a blink.
Mm.
It's not even a moment. And so when you realize that, and you realize that there is no death, there is no spoon, Neo. There is no spoon. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
When you realize there is no death,
Yeah,
you see, then there's no fear of death.
absolutely.
And when you have no fear of death,
Mm.
there is no one that can control you.
Yes.
So you see, and this is really shown clearly in the Matrix, but nobody sees it. When Neo learns that there is no spoon, and while he's in the Matrix, it's just that. That's why when at the end of the first, he can go, there are no bullets. I didn't get shot.
Exactly.
And
What
so he
we
doesn't
take
die.
down,
Whereas,
can't we?
yeah,
What is it? Sticks and stones could break my bones, but none could never hurt me. You
yeah,
take that onto an eternal scale. We've had the knowledge for hundreds of years. Because how old is that poem? It's from the 1600s or something, isn't it? Sticks
yeah,
and stones will break my bones, and names will never hurt me. And
yeah,
now it's one of the most spiritual keys that you can have, and bespeaks of what you're speaking. I,
yeah.
I got asked to put, what do you think of, what do you think life is? What do you think the meaning of life is in a sentence? And I said, learn some shit, comma, experience some shit, comma, learn some shit, then teach some shit.
Yeah.
But
So
it's
yeah,
so true. And do you have you sort of come to the conclusion that to be who you are now, to stand in that power, and I have had people speak of your power as so incredible it fills rooms. And I find that it's so incredible. You and I were so close when we were kids. Like we've definitely had lives together before, and we're soul family.
mm,
And to come back and find that we're both at this place of where I am not your guru. I am here to re-empower you. I know the pathway down. You've got the car, I've got the keys. I'll take you down there. We'll go down there and you can heal your fucking self,
absolute.
right? And I find it amazing that we've come to the same place, different, like you work with the body, I work with the brain, and we're both at the same place. And isn't it so incredibly empowering for people? But I think that both of us have to look back at what happened in our lives, and what it's taught us is that if we set these things out for ourselves to learn, then we must have. So, if you've set something out to learn, you've learned it for a reason. So what's the reason? Well, the reason is I'm going to teach it and share it, and I'm going to be able to understand other people from a I've walked my own talk level. So then you've sort of said, well, if I need to do that, then I need this set out, and I want it set out early because I'm Greg Bryers and I need to get on with what I'm doing, but I need
Mm,
to make it, so that I can crack on. So understanding that concept, if we've set out so much for ourselves to learn from, we're finally here, what, 56 years later, or 59 for you? Oh, no, aren't you
60.
79? 70, I'm just kidding. 60. So I'm a bit still cheeky. And
Bitch.
but but to understand that you can stand solidly in that power, and own that energy and be that conduit for so many incredibly traumatic things that people have had, and you can hold that energy and allow it to pass through you to heal. But you couldn't have done that if you'd led a different life.
No, no,
And it's,
no.
yeah, it's so,
You know that. Sorry.
no, no, it's so beautiful that of all of the lessons of being disempowered so continuously and constantly throughout our lives as a you know as humans in a family, or individuals, that disempowerment actually teaches you self-empowerment or re-empowerment, and the strength of that, and how it's such a very simple tool, but it is the key to healing all things, is self
Yeah,
re-empowerment. And we've come to this same place, and I am so honored to to speak to people that work with you, and travel. They travel across Europe to go to your workshops, right? Your weekend
yeah,
workshops, and they just thrive on what you've taught them. You change lives. You bring people back from suicidal tendencies. You are such an influence in the energy of people, and just simply, like, people say that standing in a room with you allows them to understand how selfish they are. And that's simply the energy that you're holding space with, and your alchemy of the mind and the body and the soul.
yeah, yeah.
I, can you imagine you? Well, yeah, what I'm getting to, little sister Ave, what I'm getting to is, when you were planning this existence, right? and this journey. Could you imagine sitting up there and thinking, right, yeah, we'll chuck that one in and this one in and then that one in. And, what you've set out for yourself was huge, right? In retrospect, what a huge journey you have been on. And it's so incredible that you're still here. It's so incredible that you're so peaceful and you walk this earth as such a peaceful healer. You're a quiet warrior of the soul, and I love that about you, and I love that it emanates out from you, from your home, right out into the world around you, and you're spoken of so highly by
Thank you.
everyone that's in your presence. I love your work, and I want to talk to you again about your work so that people can understand what it is you do and that they can attend, online classes, or they can, once it opens up, travel over to the area, especially if they are in Europe. Europe's going to take a
Yeah,
long time
yeah,
to heal, and I think the thing with COVID is that it's allowing people to begin to ask these questions that they didn't ask before because they were just too busy. And so one of the
yeah,
silver linings in it is they're asking questions that you can answer.
yep, absolute.
Yeah.
Just one thing I responded to that
Mm.
that last story I told you about with the beast thing. When I got out of hospital, the energy of the space that we go to was so apparent in me that there were people who came to the clinic couldn't come within 2 meters of me because their bodies would tingle and they would feel uncomfortable. In
Wow.
fact, one lady actually quit working at the clinic because she couldn't cope with that sensation and feeling.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
incredible. But people do say this about you, and I can't wait till you're traveling across here to Australia and come and do some here so that I can hang out and get the energy too.
yeah,
Yep,
but it'd be fun to create a class there or
absolutely.
just to come and visit.
Yeah,
So we'll see
absolutely.
what we can do.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I've got some questions to ask you about your near-death experiences.
Yeah,
So these little things. So a lot of people, like I work with a lot of terminally diagnosed clients and things like that. And I'm a death doula and clinical hypnotherapist. I specialize in PTSD and trauma release. But I have a lot of people that are sort of like, yeah, okay, I get that there's something beyond it, but it's the act of dying. It's the act of that terrifies me. And seeing with speaking of Jeff Olson, he has an incredible um, key to me, that when he was talking about, he felt he was pulled from the car and he observed the car and then the other car coming and hitting him. So that to me was like a boing, left the body before the trauma. and
absolute.
and this is what I wanted you to also share, because I know that this has happened to you, and it's such a calming bit of knowledge to get. So I'd love if you just talk about that a little bit, about that act of when you're going into trauma and what happens, between your body, the pain, and your spirit or whatever.
It's when you really realize that you aren't your body
Mm,
and you can become the observer of your body. And what happens then is that you literally let go and the body goes through the trauma, and but you haven't locked it, you don't lock the trauma in. You see, when you're totally connected to your body,
yeah,
you hold on to things and you lock that trauma, the energy of it or the emotions or the memories
yeah,
into the cells of the body. But I found that each time I've been pulled from my body because of the trauma coming, I'm the observer. I'm disassociated from any sense of the feeling. And it doesn't lock into my body. Um, I remember my motorbike accident when I was 15, no, 17. You know, I can remember riding my bike and going around a corner pretty simply, but remembering that my last thought was, I'm not going to make this. but my body has no memory of the pain, no memory of the accident. Um, and it turned out that that was actually my very first stroke when I was 17. But I
So
was already out of my
that was when
body.
you were in Waiyuru, wasn't it? Was that the
Yeah,
one in the
yeah,
snow? Okay, so what
yeah.
happened here for our listeners is I remember hearing of this. My brother was in Waiyuru, which is the middle of the North Island, in the mines, and he had a red motorbike that he bought, and he was riding out to some friend's place or a free anyway,
Aunties.
but aunties. So in the snow, um, bike left the road. This is the version I heard from other people. Bike left the road. Um, he was off the side of the road in a ditch, then covered by snow in the bike. And you were there for quite a long time. But it happened to be people that knew you from hundreds of miles away that happened to be driving down that road and just happened to see something a little bit red.
They saw my motorbike.
They saw your motorbike in the snow and they
Yeah,
went
and they
back.
stopped. They got out, walked up the road. I'm 50 meters up the road in the ditch from my bike, and they go, "It's Greg." Whoa! Call the
Yeah,
ambulance.
yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
Just
And
incredible. Do you think that things like that are guided?
absolute. They decided to go the long way home.
Right.
They would normally not be on that road, and it's a quiet road in
Yes.
in the
Yes, it
nighttime.
is. It's in the middle of the mountains and it's
Yeah.
just barren.
So,
Yeah.
and this is what I say. I can't die. I'm not allowed to die. I know that, and our lives. I mean, yes, we suffer. We get beaten. We got abused. We all sorts of shit happened to us. But when you actually look at it, what's a bit of pain? But it doesn't stay with you long. You know, um, I remember. No, I won't. But there's just nothing in my life is by coincidence. Nothing happens by accident. All my life has been guided. All my life, there's always been somebody that gave me a shoulder or an armpit to hide in. You know, when our grandmother was there, she was our rock. When she was taken away from us because her stepmother stepped in, then the universe put other people there or made it so I could sneak away and see my grandmother. Or. But there was always somebody, you know,
There was always a lifeline.
always,
Mm.
always. There was always somebody that would just give me a quiet word. And nothing is by coincidence.
And these things
Nothing.
kept you alive, right?
Absolute. Absolute. I mean, I had a 16 shot Winchester, 22, semi automatic. So it would fire as fast as I could pull the trigger.
Yeah.
It was fully loaded. And I was walking up the stairs to shoot our father. I was 14 years old. And the voice in my head says, "Gregory, don't. It's not worth it. Go back to bed."
Yeah.
We had a horrific childhood. But again, I've listened to people tell me stories that make mine look like a day walk in the park,
Absolutely.
you know? So it's like,
And
it's just,
how could you have true empathy for them unless you'd walked that walk, you know?
yeah.
Somebody
And
can't
that's the,
somebody as a therapist cannot describe Mount Everest and your journey up there unless they've
no,
experienced it themselves.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
this is the joy of our life and what it's taught and all of our experiences. And your
yeah,
experiences are vast. You've had out of body experiences, you've had visitations. We both get visitations from the other side. We both get not psychic readings for people, but psychic messages, and suddenly we find ourselves talking to people about stuff that I mean, you know, like for me, it's kind of like sometimes I'm sort of like, oh, does that make sense to you? And I'm, does that make sense to you? And then I'm like, what the hell was that? And
Yeah.
and you know, all of these things have created us to be conduits for the greater realms, and
And that's all I am.
isn't it just such a beautiful space to be? Like people
Yeah.
keep saying, so what do you do? It's like, really, I plug in at one end and I hold on to the person in the other, and I just stand in the middle.
Mm.
And we I just really love who you are, and I love you take there's very few
Thank you.
people that stand with me on this thing of like, we are not healers, we are simply
No.
conduits. And you
Yeah.
know, to find that you, of all of the people in the world, um, walks with me in that same, you know, that same, I don't know what I would call it, but I don't find many people that share that, you know.
No, because the ego is involved.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I guess I have an ego, but it's not like. Can I tell you a
But
story?
so incredible that it's you after all of these years of us being apart and so separate,
Yeah.
to come back and sort of go, yeah, what? This is so
Yeah.
cool. So yes, please tell me a story. I love your
So
stories.